This is our first CMAHC Biennial Conference, and I'm really ecstatic to see the room full, and the virtual world is kind of lining up and increasing pretty quickly, so we're in good shape there. I'd like to really kind of do a little bit of reflection, a little bit of thanks, introduction to where we are and how we got here and everything before we open this up to our Executive Director, Doug Sackett. So, first of all, thanks to everyone for being here. We know this is a pain. Everybody's time is stretched thin. I don't know about you, but I feel like I get thinner and thinner every year as far as the amount of work being required, and the time to come to these sorts of things and invest time in meetings is tough to find. So thank you for doing that. I really like the people on live streaming because we've seen it now go like this, kind of exponential over the past week as far as increasing the number of people there. The reason we have the live streaming is we want to get input from membership that can't make it. We know everybody can't make it to a conference in person. We really want you to sign up. If you can't do that, sign up for the live stream, listen to what's going on, the areas of interest to you, and then really give us feedback on that. So it's important that the live stream audience feels included and feels listened to, and that you're not just kind of in a black box and we aren't doing it. And we have an expert team, as I'll mention, that will be listening to what you and everybody has to say. NSPF, thank you. Organizational and registration assistance. I see Tom in the back, Jocelyn Jester, Susan Wickman, Alex, Michelle, others. Thank you so much for taking care of this and doing a lot of the work for us. I think it's a real good blending from the partnership that we formed there to get this done. So, housekeeping, ringtones. Oh, I have mine on still. So, can everybody please turn their phones to vibrate or alarm only or whatever that is, and so that we don't have to listen to that. Thank you very much. Restrooms, out the door in the back here, directly on your right. Emergency exit. Let's hope we don't have one. I don't think we'll be getting 13 inches of rain here, or 23 inches, but out that back door to get out of this room. As you'll notice from the agenda, it is a full agenda. So we didn't schedule any breaks. That's up to you. Please feel free to get up, take a bio break, do what you have to do. We know there are probably some change requests, CRs, that were not of interest to you, so use that time to go and do what you need to do. Coffee, tea, and provided. Thanks again to Aquatic Development Group for putting refreshments out there. Lunch is on your own. And noon to 1 p.m. each day. It's tight, but there's a restaurant schedule in your packet, and there's a restaurant here as well. And so please try and keep it short. Bring your food back here. We really have a lot to discuss, a lot of networking to do, and a lot of discussion. So please keep that in mind. You know, part of this organization is how do we, and we'll talk about that at the end, how do we move to a sustainable model long term? Part of that is that we have sponsors, and so I really would like to thank our founding sponsors, and those are very special because they're only through this conference. After that, we've already been founded, so there won't be any more. So our three at this point in time are NSPF, who's been on board for well over a year, Councilman Hunsaker joined, and SeaWorld Entertainment. So we really want to thank those groups for investing in basically making a long-term investment in this organization so that we can improve and move the Model Aquatic Health Code forward and really keep it up to date and giving us what we need from both a public health standpoint and a fun and healthy experience standpoint. Gold and bronze sponsors, Jeff Ellis and Associates, American Chemistry Council, Aquacal, Ecolab, Aquatic Development Group, IPSA, and New Mexico Department of Health. Again, thank you so much. It helps us defray costs on the meeting and kind of do the basic sorts of things that we have to do as far as having an executive director and business that we have to attend to make sure that we're addressing your needs. So thank you very much to those sponsors. I want to talk a little bit, just remind you about leadership. We have a really stellar board of directors, and I think I'm the president of the board of directors, but I'd like the rest of the board, if they could stand up. I think just about everybody's here in the room. Trecinda Davis is Vice President, Scott Hunsaker, Treasurer, Bob Vincent, Secretary, Jim Dunn, Jason Coons from CDC, John Lynn, Colleen Matoza, Tony Mendez, and Tim Shea. All except Tony, I think, are here in the room. So again, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and I think what many... Yes, please. what many of you don't realize, but I sure do, and so does the board, and so does the technical review committee, is how much work there is to do to basically set up an organization and move forward and listen to comments and change with the comments so that we're maximizing input. And if there's one thing I wanted to say, what we keep hearing from you is we liked the MAC development process. There was lots of input. We could really change things. You listened. We saw things change after we put our comments in, et cetera, et cetera. We are trying to make this organization essentially resemble that by the number of times that you can give input and all that sort of thing. And as I'll just briefly mention, one thing we did change based on quite a number of comments is first we were going to vote at the conference, and it would start right now, online voting. You know, after a few comments and discussions with people, it actually makes no sense. Because that says that if you see something that needs to be fixed, if you think something can be improved, we can't do it. We've already opened up the voting. And so we changed that. And so we will have public comments basically for another 2 weeks after this conference. So you are able to listen to what's going on, reflect what's going on, listen to submitters, listen to the TRC. You can put in other comments, because I think there are instances where we can improve what we've got, the wording and so on, and submit that, and we can change and take that into consideration, modify what's in the database, and then when we open it up for voting, it's really taken into consideration the reflection and time that you put into this conference, both in person and live stream. So I think it's a superior way to do things. I wish we'd thought of it earlier. But that's what we have members for, to give us comments. So thank you to the board of directors. You also probably don't realize how much work it took reviewing 168 change requests that are in this database. And so technical review committee, Carl Nylander, here in the front is the chair, Paul Sisson, vice chair, just from Michigan Department of Environmental Health, and Councilman Hunsaker. And Paul, I think it was last week that you retired after 38 years. So congratulations for that. We have other technical committee, review committee members in the audience. If you could just stand. Gary Fraser, I saw. Washington State, Ralph Kittler, Rich Martin, Ellen Meyer, Katie Moore, Susan Painting, and Lauren Supas. Some of you are here in the audience. Yep, Laura. So thank you very much. And we'll talk about that some more at the end, but some lessons learned too. Too much work for one group. And so we will be working on how we're going to defray that and kind of share that burden. But it clearly was a lot different than when Doug and I were talking and Jason talking in February, and nobody had put in any change requests, and we're going, oh my gosh, how can you have a conference and nobody's coming? Meaning there's no change requests. And then there was a massive dump on February 19th. And so thank you for that. But you can always put them a little earlier to make us less nervous that what we're going to see if you get a chance. So again, many thanks for that and for the work that's gone in so far. We have some other staff that you need to know. Julia Charles, up here in the front. Oh, you got to stand up. Sorry, Julia. Face the crowd. Okay, Julia is our public health lawyer at CDC. She's working on the MAC legislative tracking system, but she has transformed herself into an IT chat room tablet expert, so she'll be triaging this team. Kelly Foster, I think, is out probably by the registration table. Please, she's in the environmental health group at CDC and will be there. If you need some help, please ask her. So registration, note-taking, general problem solving, whatever you need, please ask. And then Lena Curtis, who many of you know from last year, is pregnant. So congratulations to her, and she couldn't come. But all of the work that went into a lot of what you see, copying and everything else, was done beforehand. So Lena really did a great job there helping. So thank you. Quick thing, facilitators. We will have caucus sessions, 3 of them, over the next 2 days, where the 4 different sectors can break up and have kind of conversations just amongst yourselves. We didn't get all the volunteers we needed there, so we don't need any for public health, but we need another manufacturer supplier person, a designer builder. We need 3 volunteers, and management staff 2. Could you talk to Kelly or one of the staff if you volunteer for that, and we can just brief you on what needs to be done. But again, it's basically just keep the conversation moving. What I'd love to see in the caucus is that you're talking about what you like, what you don't like, and basically as a group decide to put in a member comment. If you've got something constructive to say and you want change, put it in. That's what these caucuses are about. And there's no bugs or tapes or anything going on in those rooms, so you can say we all stink if you want and the world is, whatever. But give something constructive out of that group that can help us move forward if you think that's important. Photographers, and I'm sticking to the podium here. Photographers. The world has smartphones, except for me, apparently. And so please take pictures of what's going on at the conference, your colleagues, friends, and so on, and email them to info@cmac.org. And we really would like to have a section on the website after this kind of highlighting some of the proceedings and people and all that, so in the action that was going on. And I see Scott taking a picture of me now. So we'll post something on there after the conference. So thank you for that. And everybody likes to take pictures on their smartphone, so I know we're going to have a flood of them. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about how this is going to run. I want people to understand that we've tried to maximize for input. And so let's kind of walk through what we're doing and what's gone on. Soliciting ideas, we did this from January 5th to February 19th. And obviously many of you did hear that because you put those submissions in. We had 159, and then we've kind of split things out and done some other things, so it's over 160 now. The TRC, and I'm just going to use the abbreviations, please let me do that. CR's change request, TRC, Technical Review Committee. It's embedded in my brain now to do that. So TRC was constituted basically with chair, vice chair, and then members picked. The CR triaging to check submission criteria was done by Doug. All the CRs and supporting materials were posted on March 31st, and hopefully all of you have been able to get into the database, and you can see that you can pull up the CRs, the TRC review. You can now pull up the submitter slides that were sent in. Those have all been posted, plus the member comments that have come in are all posted on the website for viewing. And so thanks to our web developer for that, rushing the last minute. And then all CRs were open for member comment for 60 days. That's something I'd love to change, because the member comments when they closed was that nobody gave us any comments. That's long term, that's probably not great, because it would have been a good time to hear from members and all of you to say, oh, TRC, can you please consider this? Here's more data on this. Here's what we're thinking, because it was intended to influence the TRC review, but we didn't get anything. Next time, I know we'll be flooded. But I think that that's really where you really kind of need to look at that and think about how we can improve that. Technical review and comment from membership. As I said, nothing coming in at that point. The CRs were open for member comment again for that 60 days. The reviews were posted, the TRC reviews were posted on September 17th, open access, so it wasn't just for members only, and then open for member comment until the 23rd of October. And remember, I said we changed that because we did get a number of comments pointing out that this would give more chance. When I've gone to meetings, there have been floor modifications, and so that's essentially the floor modification, so that we can actually amend what's here based on all your good thinking and that. Because as you tend to read through these, you see, oh, that's not quite right. Could we morph the wording? And then here we are, both virtually and in person, give a voice to what's going on. We're going to talk about 62 of those CRs today, so it's a pretty packed schedule, but I think we're going to do okay. Being able to go through all of that. The rest of them are fairly non-controversial, editing, those sorts of things where we clearly could see that we need to amend some things, but we didn't need to discuss them. I think they're pretty self-explanatory, and most of it's pretty simple stuff, so you can get through those quickly. And then, as I said, October will be open. Post-conference comments, 1023, we will review and potentially revise the CRs, which I think is really important, that we can get the best of the best thinking then. Voting will open from November 6th to December 6th, midnight, Eastern Standard Time, that our web developer says we can just program it. It will just shut off at midnight. And so please, you'll be able to go in and out of it. It will all be online. And you'll be able to go, and we'll talk about this more towards the end of the conference, just so you know what's going on. But yes, no, abstain. You can go in and out and save things and then come back in. You don't have to do it all at one time by any means. Board review, submission to CDC, and release of the voting results on 1/14. So, yeah, Jason and I are thinking, oh, yeah, great. Middle of January will be a lot of fun. And then we have to get cracking at CDC. We have to look at all of those, incorporate and revise the annex and all that sort of thing to release this, hopefully for Healthy and Safe Swimming Week, right before Memorial Day of 2016. So let me just talk a little bit about communication, feedback, interaction that's going to occur here. We really want you all engaged. And so you can do that both virtually and in person. It's all set up to be able to do that. So please, you're here, so we want to hear from you. Working premise that we talked about actually last year at the organizational meeting was that having a microphone so 2 or 3 people get a minute or so to talk is not how we define input. It's who runs fastest to microphones and speaks the loudest. And so we want to have more than that, and we want to expand how people can give input. We want to broaden the feedback to include as many people as possible, a la MAC development. And again, the burden of the feedback, it's on you members and so on. And so I think that's important to remember, that it won't be a no work thing. It's, please give us your brain dump. That's what we need. You have all the expertise. We want to incorporate that. So please do that. The CRs are open. Basically, the process has been the CRs are open for anyone to submit. The CRs were, I'm repeating myself here, but they were posted in September, again for member comment. We received 9. That's not a whopping great number. They're good comments, but we'd like to see more. We clearly can do better next time about getting things through this process so that we open it up earlier to give you more time. I think there will be an improvement. I know there will be improved timelines next time we set up this conference, when we're not not inventing from scratch. So one way that we're talking about is the caucus discussions that we have on Tuesday and Wednesday, where you can break out and meet with other sector members. We, as you've all seen the handout, we have an online live stream-based chat. So yes, that's meant for the live stream audience, but all of you in the room really need to log into that as well. You've got the code, and so you can be part of that live stream chat. And that's what's going to show up here. So presentation here, live room chat. Here's our discussion that's going on while the presentations and everything are going. Hopefully what we're seeing is things churning up here as people start to give us their comments. We have a 3-person team here monitoring all of that, and we present it. After we go through the presentations, we'll monitor and everything on the chat room. That will be presented, and then we'll open up the mic for comments as well. But we want to get through the live stream chat business and any submitted comments before we open up the microphone. If you're in here and you really don't want to submit a comment by the chat room, it's okay. Write it down. Got to put your name on it in case we have to clarify something. Write it down and we can bring it up when we're here. Doug's going to kind of jump up and talk about that sort of thing. And then from 3 to 4:15, we'll have an open floor discussion tomorrow so people can talk about the CRs. If you don't have anything to say, then we can talk about business matters and other things. We'll have a business meeting at the end as well. So I think there's a lot of room here to give comment for different types of people who like to be, on chat, or like to be in person, or want to give kind of a comment by written means and so on. Hopefully that accommodates everybody's needs. You've got the schedule in front of you. We will have, basically it's grouped by section number. We have 12 of them. There will be 4 groups given through that time. If you don't want to hear some, as I said, take a break during that time. We will stick to the time for each hour, but within the hour we may shift depending on what's going on and what we're hearing. So each section has 4 CR presentations, or they may have a slash between them and we're merging them because they're similar content, or there'll be kind of a submitter and a TRC review on modifications and that. So just keep that in mind, and it's kind of explained on your agenda. So the presentations will be 5 minutes for the CR submission. Many cases the submitter is going to get up here and they get 5 minutes, and that will end. Then there'll be 5 minutes that either Paul or Carl will get up and talk about the TRC review and just give kind of an overview of what the thinking was on the committee. We will then move to the next session, the next CR, and do all 4 of those. That's 40 minutes then. And then we will have 20 minutes in which we're going to go over submitted comments, the the chat room gist, the magic of tablets will all of a sudden bring this information up here, and then an open mic so that we've got time to talk about each of those groups. And as I said, the chat room is going to be projected so you can see what you're putting up here and everything. Strict time limits. We've got 62 12 sessions. We cannot go over time within that. And I think there's actually going to be flexible time here and everything, but you will be cut off. And so, as I said, strict time limits. So the MC is Scott Hunsaker here at the front. He's smiling in this picture, but he won't be if you hit 5 minutes and keep going. And you will know that you're over because we will cut you off. And so he has full permission. He's got a lavalier, and he means business and sound track devices. So it's like Lake Wobegon. He has his own sound effects here. So you will know what's going on, and he'll pop up here just to explain things before we start this. So please stay on time. Caucus sessions after each half-day session are split up by sector, and the 4 sectors are listed here: public health, regulators, and again, these are public health departments. I know people are trying to put them, other groups have talked about, well, we're really public health. Yes, everybody's public health, but this sector is public health departments, not other people. So everybody else in aquatics, please separate yourself into the other 3. So it's kind of manufacturer, supplier type group, designers, builders, and kind of management staff, people, the aquatics staff, aquatics management, and so on. Basically, we have 4 rooms. There are 3 back here, the Las Palmas, 1, 2, and 3, and the Garden Terrace, and we'll explain that when it gets to that point where you can go. We'll have some papers you can write comments on and that sort of thing, and so please think about how you want to use that to influence the group, either bringing comments back here, putting in a member comment, an official member comment, and so on. But we will hopefully have facilitators volunteer by that time to help you go through that and make sure that we get through all the CRs. But it's the pulse of the community, and I think that this was something we talked about last year that people thought was a good idea so that they could talk within their area. Live streaming, obviously, it's on, and people are on, and we're probably already, I don't know, are we already getting something? So we're already there. People are on, and then hopefully you're logging in as well so that you can do your comments on the TRs. Live stream folks, if you're there, please just send us a quick email. If you can live stream attendance in the title, just tell us how many people are in the room. We only see that somebody signed up. There could be 20 people in the room, but we'd just like to know to get a feel for the reach. So if you could do that before we start really. What address do we? Yeah, info@cmac.org. Info@cmac.org. Thank you. Okay, I think we've already done that. The assignment instructions you have already. And just, when you're talking about comments, we don't really want it just to be a yes, no. It's not a straw poll that we're trying to do here. Try and be, is it the pros and cons, thought-provoking sorts of things that you might want to put in there and everything. So you can hold your vote for the actual vote. So, Doug Sackett, look at that, 8:30. I'm right on time. So we have a really exemplary executive director who started this process at the very beginning, led the development of the Model Aquatic Health Code, and then promptly retired. I don't think it was because of the MAC, but somehow it just seemed to coincide with that. But obviously it couldn't have been, because then we talked to him and we said, don't you want to continue this? How can you start this and then just bail? And so he decided that from his rural horses, dogs, cats type of location, he could work out of his house if we let him work out of his house and really lead the CMAC as we go forward and continue bringing that expertise to the organization. And I think what we've seen over the past year is a hint of where this organization can go by the number of phone calls and kind of technical consultations Doug is getting to say, the CMAC should be doing this. They should be consulting. They should be giving us this. They should be helping us interpret things. And so I think it is the harbinger of things to come. And so we, driven by your expertise and all your commitment to make this happen, because it was 10 years ago this year that the first CDC workshop occurred that said, do something we now know as the MAC, but create this. It's 10 years ago. And here we are with the MAC in the first edition, with the CMAC in place and formed, with an executive director at our first biennial change conference. I think that that's pretty impressive. And so when I look back on 10 years of my life, I feel like that was worthwhile. And I think the next 10 years is going to be worthwhile as well. And I hope that's why you're here. So with that, Doug Sackett. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and it's great to see everybody here. So many familiar faces over the years, and it's just great to see you folks here. So what I'm going to be talking about is the state of the CMAC. If we roll the clock back a year and see where were we, October of 2014. So we just had posted the first edition of the MAC in August of 2014. The CMAC was incorporated, our 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have the board of directors in place. As Michael said, just got hired as the executive director last October. During 2014, we had the National Swimming Pool Foundation signed on as the first founding sponsor early in that year. And we had our first organizational meeting in Portland, Oregon in October last year. And a lot of you folks that are here today were at the meeting last year. And that set the stage and building the process for where we are today, how we're moving forward. So thanks for your participation last year and your attendance and ongoing participation, hopefully in the future. So one of the it's all about the MAC, the model code, again, is intended to be a model to be used for and drive consistency around the country. Questions come up, so who's adopted it? Where are we? It's a great document, but what's the status? So some of the key considerations are, states have to they have their own codes, state and local health departments, their own pool codes. So they have to take a head-to-head look at the MAC and see how it fits into their regulatory process, whether it be legislative, regulatory, and then their own time frame on how things are adopted. So it can take a couple years at least, 1 to 2 years, if somebody's even committed to moving forward with it, just the natural process, I shouldn't say natural, but their own process on code adoption. So if you look at a parallel, the CDC fecal incident response, when they developed that, it was kind of just one small element of the MAC, but 21 states adopted it in 1 to 2 years, and in 5 years, all states had adopted that item. So again, it starts out slow, but then you start getting a snowball effect, and it starts increasing. Similarly, the FDA Model Food Code, adoption sped up in years 3 through 6 for the whole code. So it starts out slow and builds up steam. We also have had endorsement of the MAC by the National Association of City and County Health Officials, which we're very pleased to have that endorsement and sponsorship. I shouldn't say sponsorship, but endorsement of the product and what the MAC is and should be. We've got 23 state and local jurisdictions that are comparing the Model Aquatic Health Code to their existing code or moving ahead for potential adoption. That's 23 that we know of, that there's been communication contact with CDC, Jason Kuntz's group, and they've been doing a lot of the, when there's been a request for a comparison, his group have been doing that. So they've done 4 head-to-head comparisons to be made for key states. And as far as the adoption, I know we've got New Mexico and Eugene's here somewhere. They're in the process of moving ahead with adoption. Last I knew, it's going through their review process and looking at maybe spring adoption if things go right. And I believe Indiana also is moving ahead with adoption. So membership, if looking at, Michael talked a little bit about sponsorship growth and membership growth. Again, in 2014, when it was free, we just asked folks to sign up and be members last year at the conference. When it was free, we had around 340 some odd folks that were signed up members to CMAC. 2015, in February, we started with the $40 for 2 years, so it breaks down to obviously $20 a year. Right now, as of I think last night, we're at 351 paid members for CMAC. So we're back up to where we were a year ago when it was free, and we continue to get memberships sign-ups. And I think that's important, too. There's folks on the line, or probably maybe folks here. I know there's folks here that are attending the conference and may not have renewed their membership, and it is going to be extremely important to renew your membership, because even you can sit in, present comments, input in through the web, but in order to vote on the changes that we're talking about, you have to be a member. So it's going to be very important to sign up for membership. Sponsorships, in 2014, we had our one founding sponsor, National Swimming Pool Foundation. They've been with us in different levels of support for a number of years to get this, first to get the MAC going, getting the structure for the board, and then supporting financially and otherwise the CMAHC. So last year they were the only founding sponsor. Of recent this year, 2015, as Michael shown, we have 2 additional founding sponsors, Councilman Hunsaker and SeaWorld Entertainment, in addition to the 3 gold and the 3 bronze sponsors. So we thank you very much again for your support and vision on the support for the CMAHC and the MAC. We also we have had done financial audits of the organization, the books and the likes, and it was satisfactory, no problems. We feel committed to make sure the integrity of the organization, that we're following all appropriately following guidelines. And so we, although not required by law as the size of our organization to conduct these financial audits, we're committed to do that to make sure that, again, we're the best and we're doing things appropriately for you folks, the membership. A little bit about the research agenda, our technical consultations and MAC interpretations. This is one area I'm personally pretty excited about, is the research agenda. As we've been saying from kind of the beginning, as we are developing the model code and out for public comment, there's some areas we want it to be science-based, evidence-based to the extent, I mean, that's the goal, everything to be science and evidence-based. But as we've gone through it, there's areas that we just don't have enough data, science, to support a change or to get it to that level. So we've got best available practices, but we've identified key areas where here's where we are, it's in the MAC as a best practice right now, but here's where we need to be, here's the data we need to collect, and that went into a research agenda. And what we want to do is systematically go through those key items and help facilitate the research so that we can bring that data and whatever information is needed to elevate us from best practice to scientifically or evidence-based to modify the code. And I know that the NSPF, again, they've been funding research for the aquatics for a number of years. A key part of their organization is to support the growth and of knowledge out there with aquatics. So they've been funding research, but with the discussions with NSPF, they were looking at the research agenda that's come out of the MAC and using that to focus their research dollars on supporting research for the MAC-related items. So we really thank them, and I think it's important, again, because you can have topics coming in from all areas, and they're good in and of itself, but we're hoping that the MAC is a good focal point to say, okay, here's what I think is the most important right now and the most compelling that can have an impact on the model code and how things are either designed and operated out there. So again, thanks NSPF for kind of structuring to the extent practical their funding for aquatics research. So the research agenda is posted on the website, so you can see what the areas are. We've got different tiers there. Technical and adoption consultations, I do get a number of calls. I know Jason and CDC and Michael's group get a number of calls and emails about what does this mean, can you interpret this on the MAC. So those are ongoing. I expect that they're going to increase as time goes on. So we're going to need to look at that. Again, we're going to talk at the end of the conference some where do we go, some ideas, but that's something to keep in mind too. How do we support this a little bit broader and more formalized support structure for answering technical questions and handling these type of issues? Now, CDC efforts, they have developed a legislative and regulatory tracking system to track the update and adoption of the key MAC elements, and we get feedback from that group periodically, which is good to keep us abreast on what's going on out there. There's building a Sentinel surveillance system in 5 states that have agreed to participate: Arizona, California, Florida, New York, and Texas, to track pool spa inspection data. Because then we're hoping that the MAC is going to make things, elevate some of the knowledge and how we tackle and address certain items. So you'd expect to see some change, and that's always kind of a quandary sometimes. You've got a change in a code, what's the results? If you see more and more violations, does that mean that things are a problem, or does it just mean that there's more awareness and people are keying in on some critical items? So that's kind of an aside, a little bit down in the weeds on that, but it's important to have a surveillance system, see what's going on. Is there an impact on what's happening out there? So we need to have a system set up to track that. Again, the MAC implementation and support network is being developed by NACCHO and with CDC support. And MAC inspector training programs being developed by NEHA with CDC support. I'm pretty excited about that product too. I was peripherally involved at the beginning of the setup of that. NEHA's got the group and with some subject matter experts, and basically creating a inspector training and online interactive type training to deal with all elements of the operational elements of the Model Aquatic Health Code, so that it can be used. You have a health department, could be an operator to tune into this or plug into this inspector training, and it'll take you step by step, probably a narrated video, some on-site video and pictures, so it can really lead you through the inspection process and inspector training program. So biennial conference process development or implementation. Some things, we adopted a pretty aggressive biennial conference timetable. So the MAC has adopted every 2 years starting the results of this conference you'll see in 2016, as Michael indicated. Even though it's a lot of work to develop the conference and to develop the change request and go through that, but we think it's very important. That was one of the key items Michael talked about 10 years ago, that 2005 conference on where it was recommended that model code be developed. Another key piece of that is just don't develop a code, put all this effort into it, and then sit it on the shelf and let it stay stagnant for all these years. The industry changes. There's new technologies. There's new rides. There's new devices. There's no new research on, disease-causing organisms, treatments processes. So we wanted to stay up to date, set up a structure that keeps us current, up to date, that we can incorporate the new information as it comes in, so that we are on the cutting edge. Because what happens a lot with codes, I'm speaking a little bit from experience when I was with New York State Health Department for 38 years. We have a code and new technologies come in. We didn't even think about it. Spray grounds, for example, or different type of features, water slides, what have you. If your code doesn't address it, a health department's kind of in a quandary. What do you do? Say, no, we won't accept, we won't approve something because the code does not address it, or they have to go into waivers or variances and figure out what's the best way, is it appropriate, what are design criteria or operational criteria. It puts everybody in a bind, and I think probably on the conservative end, it kind of stymies progress and development of the aquatic type venues out there, because it just say no because it's not there. So by keeping it current, we can make sure that we're on the kind of the cutting edge of what's going on operation, maintenance, and design elements, so that we aren't a barrier or a problem with aquatics, and so that we have the most number of people out there that can to be enjoying aquatics and not be a barrier to that. So in any case, that's why we've got the 2-year cycle on that. Now, the change request, January, February, said the change request solicited. Michael's already gone through this, the February, March technical review committee formations, et cetera, up until we are to October planning and convening this conference. Ad hoc committees. Again, this is associated with the research agenda. One of the items we identified with the modules on leading up to the first edition of the model code was the chlorinator sizing. We had X number of pounds of free available chlorine per 10,000 gallons for this, and kind of a one-size-fits-all. We've got feedback on one of the interim modules that some were saying is undersized, some saying oversized. We modified it based on some of the data, put it out for the second round of comments. Still had a significant amount of comments coming in, just not right. So we agreed at that time that we need to engage more of a committee of folks that are very knowledgeable in this to look at this in a more scientific way, to gather data so that we can put forward appropriate sizing guidelines. So we had an ad hoc committee on chlorinator sizing work group, And we've got several of the members here on the committee. I know we've got Rick Coffey, Stephanie Fleming, Lars Hagen, Jim Mock, Laura Supis, I think, has been engaged in this too, to help us look at data. So you'll see an interim proposal in there right now, the results of their work, but the long and short of it is we need to do more work. We didn't have sufficient time to really systematically collect the detailed data that we needed to do a job that we felt needed to be done on that. So that's going to be ongoing. That committee is going to continue to work on gathering data and additional analysis. Indoor air handling is another important area that we identified from the development of the modules, that indoor air quality is a problem. There's proposals to increase the amount of fresh air. We got public comments back saying it's going to have a significant impact on operational costs, design costs, probably pretty much operational costs. And do we know that that's the fix? And when we reflected on that and looked at the data, there's a lot of gaps that were in there that we didn't know. Here's an air quality problem in an indoor facility. We've got health effects. We've got operational concerns, but we didn't know, we couldn't say with all of those, in all those cases, was the air handling system properly designed? Didn't necessarily know. If it was properly designed, was it operated properly? What about the water quality, water chemistry? So all the factors that come into play to the ultimate problem, creating the problem, we couldn't answer really identify what the problem is. So that's when we wanted, again, to convene some sort of task group to work on this problem, and we partnered with the ASHRAE, American Society of Heating, Air Conditioning, Refrigeration and Air Conditioning Engineers, who their standard is really air quality standards. It's referenced in the building codes, and they have their natatorium air handling requirements. And they, I don't want to misspeak, but I think they admit that their design standards and their standards in there aren't necessarily based on good, sound data either. So agreement that we're working together, created a multidisciplinary task group. Keith Corson, who's here today, he's one of our tech committee members, is chairing that multidisciplinary task group. And we're going to have a research project come out of that to tackle these very issues and ultimately change potentially the ASHRAE standards and additionally the MAC standards. So again, these are a couple important items out of the MAC and the research agenda that I think can have a substantial impact on our design and operation. Communication assistance, we changed our name. We were the Conference for the Model Aquatic Health Code. We're still CMAHC, but we changed it to Council instead of Conference. The Conference kind of speaks to this meeting today, but the council was more reflective, we think, of the organization. We've had engaged a person to assist us with getting the information out about us, so interviews, media articles, e-blasts. Again, we revised our logo with the message driven by your expertise, which is what we truly feel is this organization is all about. It's us collectively, it's our code collectively, not just a group that's present and puts it out there. All of you in the room, all of you on the live chat, and the others that couldn't attend but have been involved in the process, it's all collectively our code. We want ownership of that. So that's your expertise, your frontline knowledge and expertise is what made this code, and it's what's going to keep it current and keep it moving ahead. We've had a number of external presentations: World Aquatic Health, National Environmental Health Association, Women in Government, National Council of State Legislators, National Recreation Park Association, American Hotel and Lodging Association, APSP in Georgia, AccuTab, IPIPSA, NSF, multiple health departments. We've done presentations between CDC and myself at all these groups, and we've got more coming up. So we've been getting the word out mostly at the request of these organizations. So they want to know about it and have questions, and we're glad to be able to participate. The website, some of you may have noticed if you've been on our website over the last several months, a significant, substantial change in what the website looks like. We've got the revised look, expanded content. We've got a members-only area, so if you've signed up, renewed your membership, there's some areas of that website that only you can access. There's the database for the change requests, the TRC reviews, member comments have developed, so on the website you can access all this information. And we've got the voting modules built into a database for members. As Michael said, it's going to be electronically. voting mechanism, but it's all built on the website. Pretty excited about that. So, I think I'm got right. Okay. Yes. So we are about 10 minutes ahead of time, but I want to the next phase, which is really getting down to the nitty-gritty of the presentations on the CRs in the Technical Review Committee. Our facilitator, Mr. Scott Hunsaker, is going to be coordinating this next effort. And Scott is he's a board of directors. He's a treasurer of the board, and he's been with us in spirit as far as MAC development, support of the MAC, even before his tenure on the board of directors. So we really appreciate Scott's participation and thank him for taking and leading facilitating this next section. So.
And we're going to keep it that way too, ahead of schedule and on time, right?